This story begins at a seemingly ordinary fruit farm in the United Kingdom, somewhere you would least expect to be the site of disaster. But let this be an example to never get complacent, because no matter where you are in the world or what it is you do, a disaster can be waiting just around the corner. Hampshire is a county in the southern part of England, known for its rich history, vibrant cities and scenic countryside. Within this British countryside is Blackmoor Estate, a fruit farm that has been growing, storing and selling fruit for over 100 years. They are best known for their varieties of English apples and pears, but also grow other fruits like cherries. 57-year-old Andrew Stocker was the manager at Blackmoor Estate. He took pride in the work he did, and especially in the fruits his farm would produce. So much that he would always participate in the National Fruit Show in Kent to show off the very best of his fruits. That year, the Blackmoor Estate, with the help of its workers, had produced an exceptional yield of apples, and Andrew was eager for them to be the star of the upcoming fruit show. The apples were carefully placed into huge crates, which were then put into a special storage container. What made this storage container special was that it could keep the apples perfectly preserved for weeks and even months. The way in which it would do this was by simply changing the composition of the air inside the container. Usually, air that we breathe is made up of 78% nitrogen and 20.9% oxygen, and other gases in meagre amounts. Inside the storage container, the oxygen would simply be swapped with nitrogen until there would be only 1% of oxygen remaining in the air, transforming the inside into an environment where nothing could survive, which is exactly what you want when trying to keep fruits preserved in perfect condition. Workers on the farm at Blackmoor Estate would typically engage in a variety of tasks, including planting, pruning, harvesting fruit, maintaining and irrigating orchids, operating and maintaining farm machinery, and even selling produce at local markets. On the morning of February 18th, 2013, Scott Kane arrived at work just like any other day and started his shift. Scott had been working at the farm for just over 4 years now, and he really did love his job. He was a happy guy and always eager to help people however he could. By around midday, he had received a phone call from Andrew Stocker, the manager of the farm. Andrew told Scott that he was on holiday for the week, but he still wanted his apples to be entered into the competition that was happening later that day. So he explained to Scott that someone would be coming to pick them up, and all he had to do was hold his breath and go inside the storage container to find the very best looking apples for the show. After hanging up the phone, Scott walked around the farm to find someone to help him. Even though he had done this before, he wanted to get it done quickly, and knew that if there was someone outside to pass the apples to, it would be a much quicker process, because sometimes the best apples can be hard to find. He bumped into one of his colleagues, Ashley Clark. Ashley had only been working at the farm for about 8 months, but he was more than happy to help. Both of the men made their way to the special storage container, and once there, they climbed on top of it using the ladder and opened the hatch. Scott took a deep breath and dropped down into the storage container. He began rummaging around through the apples, trying to find the most perfect looking specimens. Ashley was waiting at the hatch, keeping an eye on Scott and grabbing any apples that were passed up to him. But after a minute of being inside, Scott collapsed onto a crate of apples. Ashley shouted for Scott, but there was no response. He decided to jump in and try to rescue Scott, but lifting Scott's body out of the container was almost impossible on one breath hold. Ashley soon realized his mistake and tried to scramble back to the exit, but it was too late and he too would collapse. The men's absence on the farm would soon be noticed, and other workers began searching for them. They would eventually be found in the storage container. Once they were taken out, colleagues and paramedics who were now on scene attempted to revive them, but they were unsuccessful, and both men were declared dead at the scene. The deaths completely shocked the neighbouring communities and the farm itself. In such a peaceful place of the world, nobody expected something like this to happen, and of course, those who were hit the hardest were the families of the men. Normally, when removing fruit from these storage containers, the accepted practice in the industry was to use a net that could hook out the fruit. On top of this, there has always been a golden rule that you should never enter a controlled atmosphere store until it is fully vented and the oxygen level has risen above 19.5%. But clearly, these safety measures were completely ignored by Andrew Stocker, and in fact, he even had a name for this reckless behaviour. Anytime he or one of his employees had to hold their breath and go inside, they would refer to it as scuba diving. But the thing about nitrogen is it's not actually bad. There's no odour and it doesn't choke you. The air we breathe is mostly nitrogen, but that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. It can make you feel like there's plenty of air to breathe, when in fact, every breath would deprive your body of oxygen without you even noticing. And in an artificial environment like this, it would happen in a matter of seconds. The Blackmoor estate landowner was fined £75,000 and Andrew Stocker was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. The families stated that they know Andrew Stocker isn't a bad man, but his negligent work practices was the cause of their deaths, which of course were completely avoidable if proper regulations were followed. Thank you so much for watching, and if you did enjoy the video, hit that subscribe button as I'd really love to reach 1k. But until the next true disaster, it's goodbye from me.